This was a much better week as far as quality for DC Comics and their releases. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear that completely trickled down to the Batman line. There's plenty of disappointments. There's a couple comics we should talk about that people might enjoy this week. And here with me to talk about that is my good friend from BatmanNews.com, from PopByCulture.com, Batman critic, comic book critic, Josh McDonald. How you doing, Josh?
I'm doing well. I'm having a bat-tastic morning. I don't know if the Batman comics were that good, but I'm having a decent morning.
To talk about.
There's a lot of Batman to talk about, and they were all longer issues too. So I got my reading in for sure.
So we're going to talk about Detective Comics 1050, the fourth chapter of Shadows of the Bat, Batman Catwoman Special, the last comic ever illustrated by John Paul Leon. Robin number 10, which I thought was going to start a new direction for Robin, but that's not exactly the case. And Super Sons special, where we get to see the team come back together. We'll talk about Detective Comics 1050 first, because this is the big weekly event that we've got for another 2 months. Rico Tamaki, Ivan Reis. I know how I feel about this, but I am not the Huntress fan that you are. So I want to hear your thoughts first, because this is a very Huntress-centric comic book.
This was a Huntress-centric comic, and being a Huntress fan, I'm excited about that. I'm sporting the T-shirt today because of it. The issue starts off with a flashback of No Man's Land, and it's actually one of my favorite Huntress moments. And it's where she's trying to stop Joker and all of his gang of Jokers from killing a bunch of babies, and she's the only line of defense, and essentially gets shot and is left there to die. But she is that last wall until Batman and Nightwing show up. So I love that moment. I was happy to see it here. It got me in a good vibe going into this issue. It didn't necessarily continue. What I will say holistically, this book is supposed to be a big event, and it just feels like a meh story. It's not terrible, but it's not great. And I think when you tack event onto it, it gives it more oomph to be better. And it's just not meeting those standards. But it kind of brings back this Parasite seeing Visions plot line that was set up prior to the Shadows of the Bat event starting. And then it kind of changes the rules. So previously, Helena was seeing visions of people who were also infected with the parasite that were doing crime. And now she just sees people doing bad things without them, as far as we know, without them having the parasite. And it kind of leans into this idea of the reason she's more violent and the reason she's more angry or on edge is because of this. And I did not like that take. If you go back to Huntress's origins from the 80s, when they first introduced Helena Bertinelli, the reason she was as intense as she was because she was actually raped as a child. And that's why when she sees women or children getting hurt, she just like snaps. And I liked, as dark as that is, I liked that. And it looks like they're trying to give just a weird version of that without going back to the core elements. So I did not like that aspect.
I do have something to say,
Yes.
Basically going back to your first point, and they're doing this a lot in this series, is the most exciting moments pretty much in each issue are them flashing back to other comic stories.
Yep.
That's a problem. There's
Agreed.
Nothing really exciting happening here. And this is really decompressed. They haven't really told much story. And I'll be honest with you, Josh, they are jumping around in times.
Yeah.
But there's no way to visually see that unless you notice the little clock in the top left to tell you that you've jumped around at times. It's not working with the story. It's beautifully illustrated, but the story is not flowing whatsoever. There's little to anything exciting going on. We now know the drug's name is Numb or whatever. I was hoping that you were going to like this because I know you're a bigger Huntress fan. I felt like an enormous letdown to me. I was like, this doesn't feel like real Huntress. And
There are elements to me that really worked. There are some character moments with Huntress that I really enjoyed. Story-wise, it's not working for me. I think my biggest takeaway and what I liked the most was Dick discussing Huntress and her drive and how similar she is to Batman and why. And that's not even a new plot line. That was something that was discussed, I think, back in the 90s between Jim Gordon and Batman. I loved that. I loved seeing that. For me as a Huntress fan, I enjoyed that. But you've got this story, and you're right. You're jumping timelines. You can't tell. But it also keeps you from having a momentum. And I think if you're going to have a weekly story coming out, you need to have some type of momentum. And the fact that we keep going into flashbacks to like present day and then a week to 2 weeks before present day, and you're just bouncing back and forth, whatever momentum you build or whatever drive you build with your narrative, it just completely gets halted and halted and halted and halted. And for me, that it suffers. The title suffers from a reader standpoint because you don't create that pull anymore. Like, we already know what's going to happen. We've already kind of seen the end. So why do I care? Why do I care about these little moments? Why do I care about these minor plot threads? Because they don't matter to me at this point.
And then there's the fact that we do get the big reveal. We know that everything that's going on that's being presented is bullshit. These people aren't better, but they're being presented as better, and they are docile. And of course, it's walking Deus Ex Machina MacGuffin. Psycho Pirate is in Weir's pocket, and he's the reason that the killers are all at bay.
I was so pissed when I saw Psycho Pirate because I had enough of the guy. I've had enough of him. I don't want to see him. Tom King's run was enough, and now we've got him here again. So I rolled my eyes, but I don't know, man.
So that was the big reveal, and it was like, oh, wah wah, Psycho Pirate.
Yeah, no, very much so. Very much so. Okay.
I can't, in good conscience, recommend this for any other reason than the art. Perhaps if you're a really big Huntress fan, this was a comic book for you because she is she's a big part of it. But I think just as narratively speaking, this is a bad comic book.
Yeah.
Let's get into another comic book that I think a lot of people are going to disagree with me on. Batman Catwoman Special #1. Tom King. I don't know why this special is needed, but we'll get into that part. John Paul Leo, this is his last comic he ever illustrated. He illustrates about the first 13 pages. The next, I think, 7 or maybe 10 pages, he actually did the layouts for. Bernard Chang illustrates those. We also have Mitch Gerrits doing some of the illustrations. We know that this comic book obviously had been planned out. It was probably supposed to come out for Christmas. It didn't because of the unfortunate passing of John Paul Leo. We've already talked about kind of that stuff, so we're here to talk about the comic book. I've read this story already, Josh. I've read it multiple times, and I've read it every fucking time from Tom King.
Yeah.
He keeps going back to the same story of Bruce and Selina getting old together. I've read the comic before. I don't care. I'm so checked out on Batman and Catwoman, Batcat, Selina, and Bruce. At this point, there's no point. Like, what's the point of this comic book?
Yeah. So I'm going to start with this. I have not been a fan of Batman Catwoman. That being said, I absolutely loved this issue. I get where you're coming from. We've definitely had this story before. I'm a big character-driven person, so I don't mind taking moments and slowing down. And while it is a similar story, it's very reminiscent of Batman Annual #2.
Yes, it's the
where
same
you go
issue.
through you go through the phases of Batman and Selina, or Bruce and Selina's life. And while it doesn't have the same luster that had, because that was the first time we had done it, I did appreciate getting more of Selina's perspective in this, and more of her side of things and her backstory. I hate how Tom writes future Selina. I'm not a fan, but everything that was like present day and prior, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was great.
I'm tired of you reading the same story. I'm tired of them making me pay for the same exact story, Josh.
Yeah.
There's almost nothing different other than there's some Christmas carols and you get some more.
That's not different. That's in every issue.
Well, no. I'm talking about Batman Annual #2.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There's some Christmas carols in this one, and then there's more scenes of Selina as a child and her growing up and being an orphan and going into Arkham and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's them just getting old together.
Yeah,
I already paid for the comic book. I already invested my time in it.
I will say you do get more of Selina and Helena together, and I did appreciate that. And I liked kind of seeing Selina really kind of question, like, are we really going to do this with Helena? Are we really going to put her in the same field? Like, we both know how dangerous it is.
I've already read that comic too with Alfred and every Robin.
Yeah, but I mean, I do think it's different when you've got your blood kid, and yes, you can say you get that with Bruce and Damian, but I think Selina questioning it brings a different dynamic. But I enjoyed it. I still enjoyed it. I thought it was done well.
There's nothing wrong with you enjoying it. That's why I said most people are going to disagree with me. Because if we're being honest, most of the comics we read today we've already read before. So this is one of the few times I thought Tom King executed it well. So I'll give him a pat on the back. He did the same comic everyone liked before.
Well, hey, if it worked the first time, why not do it again?
I don't go by that. That's how you get the M. Night Shyamalan phenomenon, where you just go and chase down the same momentum that you had every single time. You're like, yeah.
No, I would definitely describe Tom as a one-trick pony, but I did enjoy this. Right. I'm not gonna lie.
There's going to be a lot of people that enjoy it. I didn't. I'm tired of wasting my time on this stupid failed relationship.
Yeah,
it's done to me.
So what you're saying is 5 out of 5?
No, $5 out of $5 wasted. I think it was actually more than that. I think it was
it's a $10 book.
It was $10. Mike.
Yeah,
I just had on the automatic buy. I didn't look at the price. I spent $10 on this.
It's a hefty book, man. It's hefty book.
It's worse than I thought. If you're willing to spend $10 on a story that you can buy for $4 in the back issue bins, I say go for it, I guess. But I'm not recommending this comic book. It's already been done.
I'll recommend it.
Yeah, Josh lost his damn mind, but that's fine. I do think there are people that are going to like this comic book, but fuck, $10 is a lot of money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Robin. I've been looking forward to the end of this Lazarus tournament and Lazarus Island so I can see Robin and Respawn and Flatline and Connor Hawk and this whole crew go out and do some adventures together. It turns out that's not the case. Robin was back in time seeing his father with his mother, his grandmother back in the day. And we go back in there and it turns out that Mother Soul is controlling him. He's like in a coma or something, and he's seeing how the history of the family came together. I'll recommend this. It looks great. I think the Roger Cruz art is really, really, really strong in this one, especially when Mother Soul becomes young. She looks pretty damn good. She's banging. I'll give him that one. I don't care about the Mother Soul character enough to really be like, oh, this is great. I think if you're fully invested in that character, you'll like this one. I'm just waiting for them to go away from this.
Yep. But I agree with you. I'm ready to move away. But the moment they announced the Shadow War, is that what it is?
Shadow
right?
War.
The moment they announced Shadow War, I knew we weren't going to go away from this. I'm like you. I'm not invested in Mother Soul. What I will say is this issue did make me care a little more about her. Like, I feel like she carries more weight now, and she's just not some like two-dimensional character that's there and just has weight because she's Ra's al Ghul's mom. They try to give her some backstory and develop her out. That way, when they move into this event, she can have more of an impact. So I do appreciate that. With you, I thought it was fine. I wasn't crazy about it.
Josh.
Yep.
If you are a fan of Batman, maybe you haven't been able to go back and read some of those old issues with Ra's al Ghul and what he's doing and his daughter and everything. Joshua Williamson gets the character and he fills in. He tells exactly where he comes from, what he's doing, and he does fill in some key blanks that I think are interesting. Yes. Unfortunately, it's not the majority of this comic book, but if you want some information on Ra's al Ghul, there are worse places to go than this very comic book that will kind of catch you up on what the character is all about.
Agreed. It does a good job of servicing him as a character, for sure.
Now, if we could just get the young characters going out and doing some fun things together,
I'm telling you, man,
I
know that I usually despise when they do this, but I kind of wish they just made Shadow War its own title and then carried on with Robin and his adventures. But it's not going to happen.
Apparently not. But I do recommend it, not nearly as highly as I have in the past. But this is perfectly fine. It does fill in some blanks, and it's pushing the story towards Shadow War. You
almost said you don't recommend it as much as Batman Catwoman Special #1.
No, that's what you said. You're going to spend $10 on a comic book. I say buy Robin #10 twice.
Okay, well.
Buy 2 covers. Save your...
That's stupid, but sure.
Or what you could do, you could buy Robin #10. Go find a copy of Batman Annual #2. You'll get the same exact story, and you get a Robin comic that's worth your time.
I'll support that. I'll sign off on that one.
There's $10 better spent. All right, this final one, I had high hopes. Peter J. Tomasi is one of my favorite writers. Obviously, I don't think he's been treated very well by DC Comics. Every once in a while, they bring him back in and they throw him some Super Son, work. We got the Super Son, Superman and Robin Special #1. Victor Bogdanovich on the art. There are worse comic books out there, but there's nothing special about this one. It feels almost like whatever it is about their relationship that was so great when they were younger is either lost, or Peter J. Tomasi knows that DC Comics screwed him over and is like, whatever, it's a paycheck.
Yeah, I got this sense of whatever, it's a paycheck. I think with this in particular, because Peter J. Tomasi and even Patrick Gleason put so much love and work, and then it became Peter and Jorge Jimenez that put so much love and work into these two characters. And they like, if you haven't read Super Sons or Adventures of the Super Sons, they're both incredible books. They're so special. They're a lot of fun. It's a lot of what we don't get in comics these days. And I was hoping for that. And while I do like Peter as a writer, and I kind of like the dynamic of these two, it's different. And it just felt like his heart was not in it. And I felt like before, what made the difference is his heart was in it. Like he was completely invested. And now it's just, okay.
Well, you can see it through his eyes to return to the characters that he had worked so hard. You know, John was essentially a blank slate when he got a hold of him.
Yep.
Yes, Dan Jurgens introduced him, but he's the one that really, fleshed out the character and who he was. And to return to the character after everything that Brian Michael Bendis has done to John Kent, and to see like the ashes of what are left, I'm sure it was very difficult for him.
Oh yeah, and then I think it's a double-edged like sword of what Bendis did, and then what Tom Taylor is doing that creates the issue.
So you have an almost unrecognizable character that he'd had so much success with and wrote so many wonderful stories with. You finally come back and it's a shell of what it was. It's not the same as it was before. He does have a couple of one-liners in there. Robin's still pretty funny when they're talking to each other, but the magic's gone. I think they've DC Comics, through their hubris and ignorance, in my opinion, they're probably just potentially flushed away, potentially millions upon millions of dollars.
Oh, completely agree. I completely agree.
It looks good. I'll recommend it just to support Peter J. Tomasi, but this is one of the weakest recommends I could ever give in my life. It's like there's a few things there that might interest you, but the story's just not popping. There's not a lot to it, and it doesn't feel fun anymore.
No, the story itself feels very generic. It doesn't seem to have any inspiration behind it. We unfortunately have Nazis in the issue. Why? But it is what it is. I'm with you. I want to support Pete. I want to support the Super Sons, but not if this is what we're going to get. If
this is what the future of Super Sons is, they have no future, and just let them die.
Yeah.
So that's This Week in Batman. Josh had a high recommendation. He gave a 5 out of 5. Batman Catwoman Special.
I didn't give it a 5 out of 5. I give it a 4 out of 5. The 5 out of 5 was a joke from you, but
you said you loved it.
I did love it. I'd give it a 4 out of 5.
Love sounds like 5 out of 5.
Well, love varies.
So he says that one was really good. I disagree. I say that you can go and read Batman Annual number 2 and you get a better version of the story. Avoid Detective Comics. I think Shadows of the Bat, it's not going anywhere. It's certainly not going anywhere fast. No. I think they had like 4 or 5 issues with the material and they stretched it out to 12. And that's hurting it a lot. Robin number 10. Hey, if there's a Batman comic to read this week, I say read that one. And Super Sons. If you love the Super Sons, you might be disappointed. I think you will be disappointed. How's that?
You will be. You will be.
If you are getting Batman fatigue, you are not alone. Josh and I talked about this earlier today about how a lot of people are experiencing Batman fatigue. Retailers are noticing it. Readers are noticing. Comic pros are noticing. If you haven't seen the video, definitely check it out right now.